Recording is in progress. Hello, everybody. Daryl Snyder R.C. Fischer, Sportstopia.io, and R.C. Fischer is from FFmetrics.com, Fantasy Football Metrics. We have the show every Monday, Thursday. Thursday show talks about a little bit about recapping Monday, what happened, what we thought would happen, and then tonight's Jaguar game against the Saints. We'll get in depth. I know there's a question on Lawrence, which is going to make a big difference to me. Going after Millionaire Maker number 3, hoping to ship it solo tonight with RC's insights. But hey, RC, how are you? Welcome.
Doing great. Glad to be back on, counting down until this exciting barn burner of Derek Carr versus CJ Beathard. Get the popcorn ready.
Has it been announced?
No, that's I was looking real quick to see if something had broken in the last few minutes. It looks like he's okay enough to play, but he's definitely not 100%.
Yeah, and the Saints. Well, we'll get into the game. Their defense is something that can be formidable. They've had a couple of pick sixes or defensive touchdowns, but let's go back on that Monday night game where I absolutely positively, if it was legal to bet in the state of California, which it isn't, I would have taken the over. And of course, I wouldn't have done too well. So any lowlights, highlights, what do you think of the Monday night game that we analyzed?
As someone who had +2 and the Chargers, I wasn't thrilled with the eventual outcome, but it did come in with the under. I was excited to see Michael Gallup's leading the way in targets. I didn't know he would be the worst wide receiver in football with those targets. So there was
for somebody, right?
Yeah.
For the day.
So it was a fun game down to the wire. I thought the Chargers accounted for themselves well. Credit to Dallas for winning it in the end. And the Chargers look interesting with the points against Kansas City this week is one of my big takeaways from that game.
Nice.
And another game where the running backs are still scuffling to try to score fantasy points. Eckler was a dud and Pollard was about a dud till he took a little short pass and turned it into a big play late in the game, or he was going to scuffle.
I did see today a Chief is making a reunion. They let Hardman, the Jets, who didn't even use him. They brought that other guy up, right? They passed him in the depth chart, and like Gibson or something was returning punts. And
Yeah.
Kansas City, it made sense. I mean, Hardman knows the system. There's been nobody on the receiving side of Kansas City jump up and say, I'm going to be the guy. So what's your thoughts on that trade? Is it going to be impactful or?
I never thought McCole Hardman was any good of a prospect coming out of Georgia. I was surprised when Kansas City made a big to-do to draft him when they thought they were going to lose Tyreek Hill back to his domestic case, which then ended up not being a thing. But then McCole Hardman was never a thing the whole time he was there. I mean, he'd have a game here and there, just like any of them do by being around Patrick Mahomes. But he was a disappointment, kind of like the Clyde Edwards-Helaire of their wide receiver group. They let him walk in free agency just fine. Why the Jets gave him the money that they did is hard to believe. But then so the Chiefs didn't really want him. the Jets found out that they didn't want him. Now they're basically handing him back to the place where he knows the playbook. I guess that's his greatest scouting attribute right now is he knows the playbook, kind of, sorta. So I'm not super excited about it, except for there's been no Kansas City Chief wide receiver to get excited about. So I guess this is a new guy to not get excited about. And I'm sure the Chiefs have to go out and get a real wide receiver. So as
I think they're
whatever,
waiting for the
whatever,
Dolphins to release Tyreek and then he can just come back.
yeah, that would be nice for them. I don't know who I think and have thought for a couple of weeks it's going to be Darnell Mooney, and that Darnell Mooney could change the game there. And the Chiefs GM, who's embattled, is from the Kansas City personnel group hired away by the Bears. So he's got connections to that staff. If he either he's either comfortable enough to give them Mooney, or he's going to need a job because he's going to get fired this year or at the end of this year, and that would be a good thing to go back to work for the place he was doing fine at. Um, Mooney goes in there, then that changes the whole wide receiver room, and Hardman is just another piece, just like Tony and Moore and Valdez Scantling and all that. They're 1 to 3 catches a game, and occasionally one of them gets a touchdown.
Yeah, he stretches out the field. I mean, that's what Tyreek did too. Tyreek had that element of coming, he could come across the backfield and get the little shovel and take off a jet. He could come across the top of the line of scrimmage and take it to the house, but they haven't. I think they keep talking about Sky Moore. Tony came in and had one game last year that I can remember where he faked like he pulled his hamstring as he was going into the end zone. That kind of been his highlight film. And MBS is just like non-existent to me. I'll never play him in DFS. So it's Kelce, and that would, with Hardman, has speed, and with someone like Mooney, that would definitely open it up. Mahomes is never gonna. I mean, it's gonna be him and Kelce, and then sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. But Mooney, I agree. That probably makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about. We're kind of limited on time, not from your standpoint, from mine. Crazy busy, good day, lots happening. Brandon's on. He is on assignment, as they say. He'll be back with us on Monday, but we have Jacksonville, New Orleans. Jacksonville decided their residency in the UK was over after a couple of games. They came back. We don't know how that's going to affect them. Is this their first or second game? Did they come back and play
So
Sunday?
yeah, Buffalo and or Baltimore and Tennessee were in London last week.
Well, this is their
Jack,
second game, but we have Lawrence questionable with the knee sprain. We talked about. Looks like he's going to play. He doesn't, changes a lot of things for me. I don't think Beathard's anywhere near that, but besides him, and that's a big injury, any defensive or offensive line injuries on either team?
there's a couple key injuries in this one. The Saints have 2 starting offensive linemen down, good ones, and this was already a struggling offensive line to begin with. So the Saints O-line starts in a hole this game. And on the Jacksonville side, their number 2 corner, Tyson Campbell, is out for this game. So Jacksonville's one of the lower rated pass defenses in the league, and then their number 2 starting corner is out, so they don't have a big upgrade coming up to fill that spot. So it's the game because the injuries and just because of what has happened through the first 6 weeks, this is lined up to where it has to be the Saints trying to throw to beat Jacksonville. They've got a really good run defense. And now they're even more wounded in the secondary. The Saints have to attack them through the air. And then vice versa with Trevor Lawrence being limited and the Saints being so good on pass defense. The one little weakness of the Saints defense is more on the run. So this would have to be Jacksonville playing very conservative and running at the Saints while the Saints try to take advantage of Jacksonville's weakness through the air.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I think it opened up. Jacksonville given one is flipped around probably because of Lawrence's questionable, went to the other way. Saints -1. The over under 38.5 bounced up to 40. I've been saying over for the last 3 games. This game I would think under, so it's probably going to go over, especially if they have to pass. Williams is out, the running back, so Kamara's looked better. I think he's looked better already than he did all of last year. Feel more comfortable, and then you have Miller as the change of pace. But what's your thoughts about the running? I know you just said Jacksonville's got a tough run defense. Kamara's got that. Both of them really have that out of the backfield pass catching ability, right?
The Saints, with their offensive line not great to begin with, and then missing 2 key guys, it should almost be impossible for Kamara to have a great ground game this game. But he's been making his hay through the air. He's already, I think he's 6th best in catch count among all NFL running backs, but he's only played 3 games. He's played half the games of the people in front of him, and he's almost caught up to him in pass catches. Derek Carr's going to wear that out. That'll be their quasi run game, is probably Kamara getting 7+ catches out of the backfield in this game to get him away from the middle of the line of scrimmage, where it's going to be to the Saints are going to have a weakness there. They're not going to be able to run up the middle. Jamal Williams, if he plays, has looked terrible. He is super slow. There's Jamal Williams should have 0 impact on this game if he plays.
Oh,
Okay.
no, it's Miller.
So it'll be Kendre Miller just in basic relief, unless the game gets out of hand. That's when they'll give Kendre Miller more touches. But if this is a game, a back and forth game, if it's any close whatsoever, this is going to be heavy Kamara, and it'll be through the air. I wouldn't be surprised if he got 10 catches in this game, 10 or more catches.
That'll definitely get you some fantasy points. I like that. And if he does happen to break a run or two, but yeah, he gets targeted a lot. I mean, you're talking, could get a dozen or more targets than Miller. On the receiving side, Olave, Michael Thomas has looked good. I don't think he's gotten the box yet, but he's looked good. You've got our guy there, Rashid, that we like.
And he's coming more and more into play as Michael Thomas is showing. He's kind of lost the juice that he had in 2019. He can still catch the ball, but he doesn't offer much of anything besides he can get open short. He can catch the ball when it's anywhere near him, but he's not stretching the field. He's not a threat to the secondary. He's been clocking about the same game every week for 3, 4, 5 catches, 30, 40 yards, not a touchdown. And he can't get open in short space down by the goal. When things get condensed, then it's even harder for him. He's good when everything's spread out and he finds a little nook and cranny to get open and can be a nice pitch and catch for Carr. But as that started to fade away, they're starting to get Shaheed back more involved to stretch the field. And with Jacksonville's secondary being weak, their pass defense being weak, and outside corner being down, this should be another spot where it seems like Shaheed every week has one big play. He should have his one big play and then hopefully two or three more. The Saints really need this game. It just feels like this is going to be, with the Saints being at home and Lawrence hindered in some way. This just feels like this could be a Saints momentum game where they pull out all the stops to make sure they win this, because if they lose and they go to 3-4, it's not like the division's over. That's a sloppy division that can be won with a near 500 record, but it'd be pretty frustrating to see the Saints go to 3-4 and lose a game at home on a Thursday night game. It just feels like this is going to be a Saints momentum game, and Jacksonville can afford to lose this, if you will, given that Trevor Lawrence is limited. So I think we'll see the Shaheed jet sweeps. We'll see several shots at Shaheed downfield, and that's always good for fantasy scoring when it's connecting. And this is the type of game where it could be connecting.
Yeah, there's Juwan Johnson's out, so it brings into play, even when Johnson's not out, the jack of all trades, tight end slash quarterback slash, I think, just wildcat formation guy, right? On that for the Saints.
I think he's the play of the game this night. What he did last week, just when you think, he's got unique wrinkles of being a fantasy tight end and taking a lot of wildcat, he catches 7 passes last week, which I don't know if he's caught 7 passes last year as a tight end.
Well, the
Not
other
because
option, Graham, which is exciting as he is, when he used to be able to
yeah.
dunk over the crossbar, he gets halfway, and he's going to catch a pass, but he's not going to be targeted a bunch, right?
Well, really, Foster Moreau is their starting tight end, but
Yeah.
he's more of their blocker, and especially they'll need him to block with their offensive line having some issues. So even Moreau had like 4 catches last week, which was a little unusual for him.
I put it up 50 times, right? In that Houston.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was,
they got down and they had to throw a bunch, and everything went normal for them. A lot of action to Kamara, lead action to Olave, sprinkled in action to Shaheed, a lot of it downfield. Michael Thomas got his couple catches. The twist was Foster Moreau, who Carr has a relationship with, back to Las Vegas, got a couple extra catches, but it was Taysom Hill being used as a real tight end, taking more snaps than, I think he had more snaps at tight end than Foster Moreau did, but being used as a pass game weapon, catching 7 passes, but also running the ball once, which, if the Saints are having a tough time running the ball because the Jaguars' run defense is so unique, one way to counteract that, one way to counterbalance that is use Taysom Hill in some spots to be a wildcat. That always gets the defense a little confused, a little amped up, and then just when you think Taysom's going to run it, he can pull up and pass it. So he's a tight end that last week he had a tight end that caught 7 passes, had 8 targets, ran the ball once, and threw the ball once. You don't get too many tight end fantasy options doing all of those unique things with the ball. So I think he's got to be a key part of putting together a DFS lineup tonight.
he's not cheap, so he's 9,300 in the captain, and he's which may make people shy away, but he was on the Millie Maker last year. I remember watching and, last year he played quarterback more, right? He was actually, this year he's only tight end eligible. So
Uh,
before he was like quarterback, and because he came in, right, and played like whatever. So this year you get the advantage of, okay, he's tight end. He can play, he gets that wildcat call, and not only at the goal line in the red zone, but he gets it in short yardage, right? But now they're using him. Yeah, I'll definitely sprinkle him in, probably more. I'll probably be over the field on him just because I don't think at that price. I mean, if I put him in the captain, I don't think a lot of people at 9,300. I think they're going to look at Kamara, which makes sense. Carr definitely going to be chucking the ball around. I don't know if I like him at captain. I definitely probably have him in almost all my flex. He's going to get some. I think he could throw for 300 in this game. Just depends if Jacksonville can come back, and I mean, run back is called, meaning keep the game right scoring. And sounds like they're going to have to almost do the same. I mean, Lawrence, not a lot of mobility with that knee, so I don't think he's going to be the threat to take off and run, which means you have ETN, you got Bigsby, and then you have, solid, although Zay Jones is out, you got Kirk and Ridley, and let's touch on that side of the ball. But yeah, I definitely like Taysom tonight. He seems to like the primetime games, right? Like that's where he seems to shine. So I like that a lot. What do you think about, let's say Lawrence plays, he's limited, not going to run a lot. What do you think the game script looks like for them to have a chance against the, you said, pretty strong New Orleans run D?
It to finish up the Taysom part. He's gonna have a game coming up where he has a passing, receiving, and rushing touchdown, and on a Thursday night at home wouldn't be a bad place to see it happen. On the Jacksonville side, if Lawrence is limited and or they have their backup quarterback in, because because of the Saints' strong pass defense, and if the Saints get the momentum and the dome gets rocking, it is going to be Jacksonville has to be thinking we need to run this thing, we need to run the clock, we need to play it safe. I would think that ETN's in the best spot to be a captain in a game that there could be. Derek Carr has been very disappointing this season, even with 55 pass attempts last week. He only had one passing touchdown. He's averaging less than a passing touchdown a game. His norm is 200 yards or less passing in a game this year. With a couple, he has had a couple 300 games, but then all these 100-yard games. He's coming off his shoulder injury, so there could be something to do with that. But I think their offensive line is not great, and now they're even weaker. So Carr's a wild card. He should be throwing the ball all over the field and having big numbers with all these weapons that he's got, but he's been hard pressed to do it. So I wouldn't any range of possibilities for Derek Carr, but on the Jacksonville side, I think it's very limited. Trevor Lawrence is a very rhythm, get it out quick quarterback, and then takes his shots downfield appropriately. He's not going to probably have as much time, and he's not going to have as much plant ability to really step in and drive the ball like he normally would. I'm thinking this could look, their passing game could look ugly, like the Joe Burrows protecting his calf. He's playing, but he's protecting his calf, so it's a lot of dink and dunk short stuff, which to me, I'm thinking that not only is ETN the right piece in a protective game because it's the way you want to attack the Saints anyway, is Evan Ingram has 7 catches exactly 7 catches in 3 of his last 4 games. He's actually tied for the lead of the most catches by any tight end on the season with TJ Hawkinson and Travis Kelce. The guy can't get a touchdown to save his life. But if there was any game where there was a player that can spring loose short that Lawrence is comfortable with, that he can just quick dump the ball off to and let him go yards after the catch, to me, it's Evan Ingram. And he's been getting a good share of targets and everything else. There just hasn't been any touchdowns to go with it. This could be a night where he gets enough of those short, quick hitters that he breaks one and ends up having the biggest night of any Jacksonville receiver in this game, just because Lawrence isn't going to be comfortable throwing further and further downfield.
How's the tight end defense for the Saints? How's it rank?
It's a good pass defense against the tight end. It's not a shutdown impossible one, but it's pretty good. So, but Evan Ingram is more wide receiver than natural tight end. So I would take Evan Ingram as being able to buck the trend of the Saints being good. They're top 10 best in fantasy points allowed to the tight end, but they've given up a couple touchdowns on the season to tight ends.
I mean, he has to be helped with Ridley, and the speed obviously stretches the field, and Ingram comes out, and then Kirk with Jones there. It's crazy with those three, but with Jones out, Ridley.
Ridley has not looked good, and Ridley's been doing more downfield and more timing stuff. And I would just guess that Lawrence's timing is going to be off on downfield throws as it is. They're already getting off connection under normal circumstances. This game with probably Lattimore covering Ridley is just not built or not suited for Calvin Ridley, as Calvin Ridley starting to not be really suited for great fantasy results as it is. He does get a lot of bailout targets, and he does get a lot of Lawrence's first looks, but that's become less and less each week as it's not been working. And last week against the Saints, Dalton Schultz had a touchdown and I think 7 catches and 70 yards, and he had like 11 targets. So the tight end has been weak all leading up to against New Orleans leading up to that, but they have also played some of the worst passing games and quarterbacks on the season. That's why I'm a little nervous about the Saints winning this game or being said that it looks like this should be a Saints night, but man, the Saints have not looked good, and they've played the Mac Jones, Baker, Jordan Love, Bryce Young, Tannehill. It's been a collection of weak quarterbacks that they played, but then they played CJ Stroud fairly tough last week. But Dalton Schultz was a factor. So I think Ingram can be okay. He's set up to be okay in this game. And then the way Jacksonville is using him, he could be, I would bet he will lead them in catch count tonight. What he does off of that, who knows? He's overdue for a touchdown.
I like him. I mean, it makes sense if Lawrence. You brought that visual of Joe Burrow that game where he was basically a statue, right? Back like 2 steps, and
yeah.
But Lawrence, I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? I mean, they're saying he's game time decision, and if he plays, and you can't see him. I mean, one thing you have to figure is he does try to play, and he does all of a sudden have an opportunity to run outside, and then he's smashed and he's out. Then you got Beathard. So I'm probably going to be light on him, which is dangerous for the quarterback because they normally can get you in the teens. So if you fade him totally, I won't fade Carr. I don't know how Carr doesn't get there because I don't think I'm like you. If Kamara scores, he's going to score on pass catches, and that's a receiving touchdown and a passing touchdown, right? So you get 4. So I think Carr. I see Carr getting high teens, low 20s, and if the Saints are able to come back, I guess the factor that could affect it is Taysom Hill becomes the vulture and he runs it in, throws it right. He gets a trifecta, and all of a sudden,
Taysom Hill may have the most passing touchdowns in this game with 1.
right? Yeah. Then Carr's not going to factor in. But how about, so you think? I think about what you're saying, and normally, I mean, that over under total low, but because they're both forced to pass, which means the game speeds up, right? They can't keep running and controlling. They can control the clock with short passes, but somebody's going to break free on one of those or a few of those. And I look at the first, I thought, wow, that's a defense, right? You play, especially the Saints, I like. They've already scored 2, and I'm thinking they can, with Lawrence not having that mobility, they can force him into a bad throw, right? And they take it to the house on a pick 6. The Jacksonville defense, it's had a couple of touchdowns. I don't know.
They got gifts from, I don't know what Gardner Minshew was seeing last week, but I mean he was throwing the ball right to him. Derek Carr usually does not get sacked a lot, and he doesn't turn the ball over at a high rate. So there should be limited opportunity for Jacksonville's defense to subdue or put undue pressure on New Orleans to create that opportunity. I mean, anything fluky could happen, but the defense that puts pressure on the opponents in this game is New Orleans. The Jacksonville run defense is really great, but that doesn't usually lead to great fantasy scoring.
No, I remember Stroud had a huge game. He had like over 300 against Jacksonville, right? You talked about Stroud against New Orleans, but Stroud against Jacksonville. I mean, they've had some games where they did good. I don't think they won the 2 out in London, right? They won the
Mahomes, their pattern has been Mahomes went for 300 plus against them. Stroud went for 300 plus against them. Then they played the Falcons, which is not a passing team, and it was a very quiet game. They took advantage of Ritter. Then Josh Allen put 350 plus on them in London the following week. Then last week, Minshew racked up 300, but that's just because they were way down. But I think they picked off Ritter 3 times and Minshew 3 times last week. So most all of their interceptions have come against really bad quarterbacks. Carr's a step above the bad quarterbacks. He's not up with the Mahomes, Allen, Stroud, but he's not with the Ritter, Minshew crowd. And I think if the Saints get a lead, they're the type of team that will just try to suffocate and run out the win. It's going to be tough for them to do with the Jacksonville run defense, but that's where I think we'll probably see 2 or 3 Rashid Shaheed jet sweeps, probably see 3 or 4 Taysom Hill carry moments, especially maybe near the goal line to help with the run game, and then Kamara in the passing game as a quasi run game, getting him out in space.
I like it. I'm probably going to play some kickers just because I think that both teams can move, but because of the defenses, there'll be some stops. So, I mean, they're figuring whatever you see that 40 total and getting pretty close, one, but either way, that means they're thinking a couple touchdowns, a couple field goals each, right? Or something like that. Kickers have been factoring in the showdown slates, but I think Shaheed definitely a play. Taysom, I'm gonna have a lot of him. Ingram definitely over the field. I like Carr. Probably play the Saints defense a little bit. I won't load up, but I don't want to be without them when all of a sudden first or second series they have a defensive touchdown and they have 16 points already. And I'm chasing it because I don't think it's going to be. I think it has a chance to go over. I don't think it's. I mean, I'm talking maybe 40, 45 points, right? At the max. I don't think it's going to be a track race, or a track meet. I mean, but
And if the game gets out of hand, it's probably more likely that the Saints get up and start to get this out of hand, of which the Saints will then slow everything down. But if Jacksonville has to play from behind, and if Lawrence is not 100%, Lawrence is not near as good a quarterback as what the media portrays. He's very got to be scripted, got to be protected, and when games get put on his shoulders, he can get turnover happy. And I gotta believe if he's not able to plant and throw like normal against an energized Saints defense where the secondary is their power, there's pick six potential. The more this game gets out of hand, the more the pick six potential rises. And then if the game does get out of hand and it's let's say it's 27-6, you know, fourth quarter-ish, and Lawrence isn't looking good, they're gonna pull Lawrence, and then you're gonna get CJ Beathard trying to move the team in known passing situations against the Saints secondary. So I think the Saints defense is a play here. I would be shocked if if Jacksonville just mowed them over with limited Trevor Lawrence.
yeah, especially that crazy Saints who dat.
Yeah.
What
If the Saints get up and get that crowd going, that thing could implode on Jacksonville quickly.
what we have about 5 minutes. What let's say Lawrence is ruled out. How does that change the whole game with Beathard?
If that if it happens because they're in a deficit, then Beathard's going to have to come in and throw deep, up which he's got a decent arm. He has some experience. He can make some downfield throws, but it's going to be against a tough pass defense that at that point that they know the pass is coming. So it's going to be a recipe for trouble for Beathard. If Beathard has to come in early and try to win this game, it'll probably be just even more ETN trying to keep it safe, trying to keep it limited. The only wrinkle that an early CJ Beathard, or CJ Beathard is definitely going to play. Let's say CJ Beathard starts because Lawrence really can't go. The only little side wrinkle player to all of this is, or not the only one, CJ Beathard would have the most time working with Tim Jones as a second team wide receiver who's pretty good. And with no Zay Jones, somebody's going to have to be the third wide receiver. It's usually Tim Jones and Agnew, but Agnew works more with the starters. Tim Jones works more with the backups. So CJ Beathard would have worked with Tim Jones and Brenton Strange, the second tight end, more than the first teamers. So if the game gets out of hand, then we could see him taking shots at Tim Jones. We could see Ingram out of the game. If it's a blowout, Ingram out of the game some, Brenton Strange in more, and maybe some weird fantasy points. Bigsby in the backfield more. D'Ernest Johnson in the backfield more because they're just mailing it in and taking the loss and going to try to get out of there with all their stars healthy. That would be where I would see things going with Beathard. That I don't think he can step in and make anything radical happen. If he starts, then it's going to be super conservative for Jacksonville. If the game gets out of hand, then it's going to be potentially a backup festival in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, good point. So we talked about Shaheed. I don't know if he's a dart. I think people are going to look at him because he is a speedster. Anybody talked about Bigsby? I think he just brought him to play. I think Taysom Hill is probably, I mean, he's not cheap, so he's not like a 200, 300, 400. Is there anybody super cheap that we're sprinkling in? Our Ronnie Bell play. He's become a verb for us. A Ronnie Bell play of the night. You have anybody you want to bring into play?
Besides Tim Jones, the wide receiver for Jacksonville, the only other curveball that could come out of nowhere is if this game is a blowout, let's say two possible patterns to a blowout. One, Beathard has to play from the start and they get walloped. Or Lawrence plays, does the best he can. The game just gets out of hand in the early fourth quarter, and they're like, let's just pull back and get everybody healthy and get out of here. The third string quarterback, assuming he's active, not set as the emergency quarterback, but that he's really active, and he will be if Lawrence is inactive for sure, but he may be active even if Lawrence is active. The third string quarterback, Nathan Rourke, was one of the best quarterbacks of the preseason. He's a runner passer, did good at both. If I were Jacksonville, I would want to see some Nathan Rourke work in this game to see if he's not, if Trevor Lawrence were to get hurt and gone, they ain't going far with CJ Beathard. They'd probably sign Carson Wentz, but Nathan Rourke is more the talent that they have. So I don't know if they would want to take a look at him. And if he gets in the game, when he got into preseason games, he was running the ball. He could lead this night in rushing, just playing in the fourth quarter at quarterback. Plus, he's a decent little passer. It would be his first NFL work, so it could all be a blur for him. But he would be the one little side note player that could come literally out of nowhere.
Yeah, I don't even think they list him. I read that they activated him from the practice squad, but I'm looking and I don't even see him on the, I don't know if he's even.
Yeah, he may not even make the
Well,
cut for.
There, tight end Jacobson, which I don't think plays. Bowden Jr., Hudson, a tight end, 300. Parrish, a running back. Jacksonville, he's not relevant. Kirkwood, he used to be. I don't know if you remember him. He's kind of a guy that you see 1-2 plays a game.
Yeah, he'll get a catch a year.
Right. Harris, Peterson, tight end. Holtz, tight end. I'm not going to play anybody outside. I won't even play Graham. He gets one touchdown. He's not going to beat me. Tyson, play. Is that Snoop Connor, 300? Was he the third string behind Bigsby? If he even plays?
D'Ernest Johnson would be, if this game devolves out, I think we would see Bigsby and D'Ernest Johnson. probably Bigsby getting more touches in a blowout just because he hasn't gotten a ton of carries. He's a rookie. It'd be good to get him some more work. Ernest Johnson's a veteran pro. They don't need to see more work out of him. Bigsby could use the extra work.
Yeah, Tim Jones has had 3 catches all year. He's cheap, 300. You mentioned him. Mims, I don't know, he's a running back. He's not
Yeah,
scoring.
he's a practice squad running back that I think they may have elevated him.
He's around, he may be, but I don't know how much he gets with Bigsby there. Agnew, you talked about, he's 600. Just trying to figure out with, is he gonna come in for somebody like this to be a Ronnie Bell? Like Ronnie, he has to house one with some distance, 40, 50 yarder, and then get a catch or two on top of that
He's
to back
capable of it. I mean, he's capable of taking. I bet he'll get a jet sweep or two in this game.
Agnew.
Yeah, and now that we're talking about him in the short game, if I'm Jacksonville and I'm trying to keep Trevor Lawrence limited to 1-2 steps and throw, that's where you would throw it to Agnew as a bubble screen and let him go off to the races to do whatever he could do with them. Kirk and Ridley are not great bubble screen guys, but Agnew is built for that. Plus, he's a return man. He could get a score off a return,
I was just
much
gonna say,
less.
he returns both kickoffs and punts.
Yeah.
So there you get 6, you don't get any yardage, but that definitely factors, and then he gets to, I mean, if you get a 600 guy that gets you double digits, he's definitely worth sprinkling.
And if
Yeah,
the game gets out of hand and they would pull Ridley and Kirk, but they would leave Agnew and Tim Jones in to play out as wide receivers.
awesome. Great recap of what's happening. It's given me a lot of direction. I'll wait to hear. I think Lawrence will play just because, but it could be they're thinking they know. I mean, they're 4-2. I don't know if they think they have a chance without him, but they may not want to risk, right? You don't want to risk him, and knowing New Orleans has solid defense. I don't know. We'll see. But if I definitely will shift if he's out. I don't even know. I mean, like you say, a lot of ETN, huh? They almost have to. I mean, he's about going to be that, and Ingram, the guy just
They-
goes short, right?
Yeah, and Agnew trying to be like a Curtis Samuel for them, where he's catching some short passes, he's taking some jet sweeps, he may even line up in the backfield for a carry, um, just to keep everything short and sweet and different. He would be maybe a little more integrated in with Zay Jones out. So, but we won't probably, or we won't know probably until 7 o'clock about Trevor Lawrence.
Is he the third? So is he a wide receiver 3 then, Agnew?
Yeah, he would be the one who would play the most snaps. I don't he may start as the number 3. Tim Jones may as well, but usually Agnew finds his way to more touches and more snaps, even if he's not the starter.
Yeah, they got Kirk Ridley. Yeah, I like him now more. Definitely sprinkle some more Agnew just because I didn't even factor that in. I was discounting the fact that Zay Jones is out.
Normally, like on their depth chart, Tim Jones is behind Zay Jones, so it's usually he will be in that role as the outside flanker type wide receiver. But Agnew usually
Yeah,
finds his
Tim Jones.
way into playing a lot more in those circumstances.
Yeah, he's got 3 receptions, 10 yards, but he doesn't return. I like the return element. You never know, right? It just takes one. It's like an interception or a scoop and score. It definitely gets 6 on the board from a guy like that that's going to have some touches. I mean, it looks like Agnew could get 3, 4 touches,
Yeah,
whether it's
I think when Zay Jones was out earlier, got hurt in games. I'm just looking. Uh, Agnew had played 55% of the snaps in week 3, He had 4 catches for 49 yards, 3 returns, had a big return last week against the Colts, but didn't see any targets, played 30% of the offensive snaps. So he's going to be on the field, and with Lawrence limited, he would be a helper more than Tim Jones is more of a downfield surprise. I didn't get covered and now I'm wide open downfield. Like it'd be probably a one-time wonder event with Tim Jones. If CJ Beathard is starting, we might see more Tim Jones just because they've worked together a lot more.
Well, I'm
But
going
with
to throw
Lawrence,
in some Agnew and Taysom Hill. That's going to be a different lineup if I put them both in and then play some Carr maybe with that lineup. Sprinkle in, but that's definitely if those two, if Agnew gets to the house, I mean, he's got two ways. He's got the receiving punt or kickoff, but he's got a long pass possibility or a jet sweep. And then Taysom just does his Taysom thing. That could be
and Taysom's doing a new thing. So catching passes, being a real tight end.
He used to be the only tight end that,
Yeah.
right? He'd come around or he'd throw, but well, thank you. I appreciate it, RC. You can find RC Fischer in numerous ways. He's on Twitter, but he's got ffmetrics.com. He is a data provider, one of the projection providers, and the Contrarian Edge Optimizer. You can test that out for just $1, 7 days. Really sweet right now. You get the remaining MLB, you get the NFL, and we have started to populate it with NBA. RC is the NFL, one of 7 providers there, and he provides an article or 2 or 3 or 4 on Sportstopia.io. So thank you. I'm glad Brandon, we missed him. He wasn't here to carry on as he usually does for long periods of time, but next time he'll be here Monday.
I don't even know what's going on in Stanford football now.
Well, I learned something I never knew. I thought the mascot was a cardinal. Do you know what the Stanford mascot is?
I thought it was a cardinal and a Christmas tree.
Yeah, it is. It's a tree. I was like thinking.
That's a Stanford education that's just above me. I'm not.
Hey, all you Stanford people, if you're watching this podcast, but I knew Notre Dame was a fighting Irish and he's a leprechaun. I didn't know there was a fighting tree. I thought it was a fighting cardinal, but he said the cardinal is for color, like crimson tide is for color, but the tree, and then he shows me, if you Google it, it's like this griefy, it's just leafy, looking. Anyways, I'm like, that's
The Stanford people are more educated than I am, so it probably makes total sense to them. I'm too dumb to understand the nuances.
He and I, we had a nice chuckle about that. But so every day he sent me today how many Stanford people are actually in the NFL, and they have a great school. They're gonna enjoy their time in the ACC, and all that frequent flyer miles are gonna collect.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but thank you, RC. I'm gonna get this into recording mode, and look forward to texting you tonight and letting you know we're going to Catalina because the Millionaire Maker was cashed in with Agnew and Hill and some surrounding supporting cast. So
Dude, I've got my bags packed for the last 4 weeks, so we're due.
We
need to get back to
third one.
I'm not used to not winning these Thursday nights, so it's getting a little testy now.
I'm ready to jump right back into the saddle. So thank you. Great information. Look forward to seeing you on Monday.
All right. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.